on the Texas A&M Sports Network. From Learfield, welcome to the Aggie Football Hour, brought to you by Capital Farm Credit, a leader in agricultural financing. Also brought to you in part by Coors Light, Choose Chill, and Gig 'em Aggies. 2024 Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Celebrate responsibly. Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue. Visit Rudy's.com to find real Texas barbecue near you. Twisted Tea, hard iced tea for the 12th man. Please drink responsibly. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas. Through it all. And by Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. Now, the Aggie Football Hour, brought to you by Capital Farm Credit, a leader in agricultural financing. Here's the voice of the Aggies, Andrew Monaco.
Howdy. It is wonderful to see everyone again this week. We missed y'all last Wednesday, but thank you for being here for another edition of the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko. It's presented by Capital Farm Credit. And after beating the hell out of Missouri, the Aggies beat the hell out of a bye week last Saturday. Howdy, Coach.
Howdy. How's everybody doing today?
Fun. Number 14 coming in. Mike, first half of the season is over. You get the bye week. That's where I want to start, with the bye week. You met with the media after the Missouri win, laid out what you wanted to do, and then now you get to approach this back half of the season, starting with Mississippi State on Saturday. How important was it for this team to, one, acknowledge what they've done, realize they haven't done anything yet, if you know what I mean, but the mental and the physical break that they take from the first 6 weeks of this season?
Yeah, I think that's more the focus. I don't think we spend much time talking about where we are, what we've done, what's happened. I think it's, we know we've played 6 in a row. We know 4 of those were against Power 5 teams. And I think this was an opportunity for us to just kind of take a breath, get the body healthy, get rested, get the mind healthy, get the mind rested, and put ourselves back into a sharp position to come out and start competing now at what is 2-3 game seasons in a row, right? We get 3 in a row, 3, then another bye, then 3 to finish. So I think we knew if we could get through the first 6 and be in a good position, the back half of this would set up really well for us to go chase it. And that's where we're at. It starts this week in Starkville.
And you know, in the SEC, October and November, very different months, are they not, than from September? They're all important, you know what I mean? But this is where there's a little more notoriety, November to remember, things like that. That's smart.
That for sure. And I think the other part that everyone always loses is, like, now you're playing SEC teams every week. Yeah. And the competition in our league, the competition amongst teams, like, every single one of these games is a battle. It has been for the last however many years we've been in this league. And you get into the back half of the schedule, and not only is it about consistency of performance and playing at your best every single week, but now it's, okay, it's SEC team, it's another SEC team, it's another SEC team, and the grind and wear and tear of that physically and mentally is a challenge too. And so that always will make the back half of our seasons harder, because it's a lot different when you have to do this every single week against SEC competition.
Was last week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday a chance to get almost like a fall camp-like atmosphere again and correct some things?
Yeah, so what we did on Tuesday was anyone who had played over 50% of the snaps really just kind of did some indie work, and we kind of did most of the teamwork with the kids who had played under 50% of the snaps, and then got some younger kids going. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, if you come out and watch us at training camp, we're usually going on 2 separate fields, getting a lot of different guys reps. And so we went back to that on Wednesday and Thursday so we could get some of the younger kids, some of the threes, because you never know from an injury standpoint what's going to happen. You know, you never know where this thing's going to go, who may need to step into a role as you go down the stretch here. And so there's some guys who haven't gotten a lot of work that we were able to get some work. We were also able, obviously, to get our starters a ton of work as well. And so we were able to get a lot of group going, a lot of reps going, just like we would in a fall camp, which I thought was really good for the whole program.
Do you also get a chance to peek ahead and maybe bring some things in that you may see in the next 6 games or in the next 3 weeks?
Yeah, a little bit. I think our focus, it really becomes now, it's such a copycat league.
Yeah.
And so what we really probably did more was say, okay, here's how people are attacking us on defense. Here's some of the plays that people are using. We know these are going to get copycatted as we move forward conceptually. Here's some ways people are trying to defend us, or here's some things offensively we want to fine-tune because of how people are defending us, and let's go in that direction. And I still think for us, the focus is still so internal. It really is. And that's, I think, always how you want it, but in year one, even more so, because we have so much to do and get better and improve and fix. And, we have enough to fill our plate if we just focus on ourselves still.
I don't want to make this sound simplistic as a question, but winning helps everything that you've talked about. Really, you feel like you now own those 5 wins, right? You've talked for 8 months about it, and here we are now through 6 weeks. There's buy-in with the winning as opposed to always adjusting after losses.
Yeah, the word I always use is validation. I think everybody, your fan base, your players, your coaches, like we all talk about process, and the road to success is always process-driven, and how we go about our daily work. That's ultimately what leads to success. But at the end of the day, that message only goes so far if at no point ever do you get validation that you're actually on the right path. And so I think what happens when you have success is you create validation to the process that you're on. And that's what I tell our guys. Like, you have 2 choices when you have success. One is you can enjoy the success and all of the things that come with it, the social media accolades and the good thing, right, and all that. And if you do that, you're going to wind up getting smacked upside the head really quick. Or you can fall in love with the process that led to the result, that led to the positive outcome, and get hungry to go at that process harder, get hungry to go at that process with more discipline, with more focus, and create more opportunity to create the same results, right? And it's a slightly altered mindset, but that's what we talk about a lot.
So you want the players to take the ownership that if they know that on Tuesday we didn't do what we were supposed to do, you want players to tell players we need to correct it, not coaches to be.
Yeah,
is that part of
to some degree, but what I want them to do more than that is I want them to come out Tuesday understanding that what I do today is going to have a huge impact on what happens Saturday.
Gotcha.
And we say that as coaches all the time, but when you start buying into it and you start having better preparation and you start doing things the right way, then you start having success. It goes one of 2 ways. It goes to, oh, wow, that did work. If I do get nutrition, if I do rest, if I do prepare the right way, I do play better on Saturday. So I'm going to do that even better next week because I can. Or it's like, oh, cool, we won, so now I can relax. And
Gotcha.
That's the trap you're always trying to avoid. And I don't think it has anything to do with anything other than the human response to success. It's not who you beat. It's not who you're playing. It's not where you're playing. It's you're fighting human nature. Right? Human nature is always, hey, I got this. I'm going to relax. And you can't ever do that in football, and you can't do it in the SEC for sure.
You made note that Le'Veon Moss says he's been in the best shape that he's ever been in, even after 6 weeks. I would imagine the same thing for Shamar Turner and all the muscle that he put in. Like, now that realization of that's why I did all. That's why I put in that work. They're seeing the payoff, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing we do a little differently, too, is our lifting regimen in season is still going. And it's not just maintenance, right? It's pushing and continuing to grow as much as you can and managing it based off of how many reps and all of those things. But, we've got guys that are stronger now than they were 6 weeks ago. And that's where you want to be. Like, that's what you want your strength program to be about. And it can't all be that way. And not everyone's going to be that way because there are a lot of bumps and bruises that come along with playing SEC football. But you want that growth. And I think the kids feel that. And they feel like, wow, my body feels good. Like, I feel good still, and that's a good spot to be in.
Much more of the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko. It's presented by Capital Farm Credit when we return to Rudy's, 504 Harvey Road here in College Station. This is Aggie Football from Learfield. Howdy, Ags. Look for your opportunities this season for your chance to win Texas A&M prizes from the Texas Lottery. The Texas Lottery proudly supports Texas education and veterans. Play the Texas Lottery today. Scratch 'em tickets and gig 'em. It's the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko, and it's presented by Capital Farm Credits. I wanted to ask you about something that jumped out at me, not just in your media availability, but something you said on the practice field. You used the word earn an awful lot on that practice field. That's a big word at Texas A&M, right? You earn your Aggie ring, you earn the diploma, you earn your playing time on that field, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's something we wanted to instill. When you talk about building your program around the core values of your university, You go all the way back to the core and what the core stands for and what the core represents, and it's part of that blue-collar background that is Texas A&M, and I think we want to embrace that too. And there's a fine line you walk between, you're a talented football player, you've earned the right to be successful and reap a lot of the benefits that come along with that, but don't ever let entitlement kind of sleep in, because that'll kind of be the death of you. And we try to make sure that we get our kids to understand that.
You're big on championship mindset, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's the difference. You play in this league, and everybody talks about this. This is the big boy league, right? And the margins for success and failure are so small. And you just look at last weekend, right? Some of the games, how close the margins are, but how differing the emotions are from success and failure, right? And how do you build through all of that? And to me, what differentiates it is the mindset. It differentiates it how you emphasize it, how you pour all that you have into it, how that you pour all you have into your teammates. All that stuff is what separates the talented teams. And in this world where, if you win, you feel over here, and if you lose, you feel over here. But the difference between the two is like something like this, right? Like it's the margins that you got to figure out a way to close.
Buzz Williams said this last week at the tip-off banquet. He brought that there were 14 games that were two-possession games. And he broke it down even more. 72 possessions per basketball game comes down to two possessions, right? Maybe four plays each side of the ball. He said, what I want to take away is the luck and the hope we're going to win, and make it the skill that we make those plays, so they're no longer one or two possession games, right? When you break it down into that nugget, that's the reason why you say, win that battle, win the 6 inches in front of your face, correct? And if you win that more times than you lose, scoreboard's going to say what you want it to say, won't it?
Yeah, for sure. And you have no way of knowing which is going to be the play, right? Like, okay, so you line up over 3.5 hours, you're 19 years old, and you've got to stay focused, and you have no idea which one of those plays. The only thing you know is that for the history of football, there's going to be those 4 or 5 plays that are going to make or break the entire game, right? And you never know when they're going to come up. And so we talk a lot about this from our mindset standpoint is this. We want to chase perfection on every single rep. Like that is the most important thing on the planet, is that I am perfect on this rep, and I never will be. And then I got to do it again on the next one, right? And then I got to do it and through the mistakes, through the failures, through the successes, through everything that comes with that, I've got to reset and I've got to chase perfection on this rep, right? And that's the 6 inches in front of your face, right? That's the focus on growth and development and taking the proper steps forward that you need to take every single day. And if you do that, like that's successful people, right? Mm-hmm. We study successful people a lot in our building because you're naive if you don't, right? If it's to assume that we all know it, like, no, we don't. Like, let's study the people who have become successful. And a lot of them are obsessed. A lot of them pour everything they have into what they do. And a lot of them stay really focused and are process-driven. And they don't let the results shift or change how they go about their daily routine. I think that's where the champions come from.
Watching SEC Inside, and they were inside the program, and it was during practice, and mentioned something about you're not running as fast as you can on this drill. I don't know if it was special teams or something else. And now you're calling out the miles per hour, and you're calling out the effort, guys, right? It's a combination of the reward. We see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Then they see what they're doing and how that matters, doesn't it? Chasing that perfection of each rep.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes all the way back. We've talked about the word strain and how important that word is in our program. And this goes back to the years of doing this, right? The coach yells, hey, you got to run faster. And the kid says, I'm running as fast as I can. And no, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're right. So we cut all that out. We got these GPS monitors now. We know exactly how fast you're running. We got iPads on the sideline. The iPads tell us real time exactly how fast you're running. And so, there's times where you're doing a pursuit drill. And in the pursuit drill, the expectation is you're going to run as fast as you can run. And then our DBs can run 20 miles an hour. Some of our DBs can run 22 miles an hour. So if you run across the field and you run 18 miles an hour, you can't tell me you're running as fast as you can because I know how fast you run. I know how fast you just ran, and that's not it. Right? And I think that was what came across, in that film session. I think that's what they were doing. But there's certain times where, you need to open up and run because part of it is you just need to know what that feels like. You know, and that's part of building that mindset of strain and effort, and like, what does it feel like when I'm on a football field running as fast as I possibly can? And that's why we're out there yelling those things, because it's like, that's it. Like, here's a rep, we're on this rep, and we don't do it. It's not all practice. You can't run sprints all practice, right? But there's certain periods, kickoff coverage, pursuit, like routes on air when we catch the ball as wideouts and we turn up the field, where the expectation of that rep is we're going to hit somewhere above 90% of our top speed, and we're calling that out to the players so that they can go, okay, yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what separation feels like. That's what chasing across the field feels like. And you're just building what those routines are.
Is that why Florida, the win was so important, and you called out the strain and effort? Because sometimes you think you're straining, right, and then you realize, oh, I can do even more, right? Was that a key moment, you thought, in the first part of this season?
Yeah, I thought so, and I think, like, you know, everybody says culture, like, we got to have culture, right? Yeah. And everybody says it, but what does it actually mean? And for us, like, part of what that means is that relentless effort that we're going to pour into our program. That's part of the grind. That's part of the R in the grind. And and as you start to build through it, like, every kid thinks he's playing as hard as he can. Right. That's just we think we're working as hard as we can. We think we're watching film as, like, everybody thinks we're doing it as hard as we can. And then when somebody challenges you to raise your level, and you start to raise your level, you start to realize, like, oh, okay, no, there is more. Like, oh, no, there is. Yeah, and you just keep finding these new levels you can get to. And then I think as the leader, it's important that, you know, we notice that. And we, like, okay, if I'm asking for it and they give it to me, like, we've got to notice that. We've got, like, I can't always just say, like, more, 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 right? No, like, there's something we're looking for, and, okay, we hit it. Now we got to stay there. Right now you've redefined where the standard is. Now we got to stay there. I think that's kind of what it's all about.
Back to the validation.
Right.
But to your point is, you can't go back any longer.
No.
This is what it has to be.
Yeah, this is you, right? You know, a month ago, this is how hard you thought you can play.
Right.
Now with us driving you and you driving yourself, you've now are playing this hard. Well, you've just clearly established what hard looks like for you.
Right.
Now let's find some new levels if we got them, and if not, let's just stay there and let's be there all the time.
Got a couple questions for you. We'll ask them when we return to the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko. It's presented by Capital Farm Credit. This is Aggie Football from Learfield. The Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko is brought to you by Capital Farm Credit, the largest agricultural lender in Texas. Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. They are checking in from Texarkana and Victoria, Fort Worth and Longview, Huntsville and Winters, Corpus Christi, and in San Angelo, Mason Brooks is rocking his 10-week-old to sleep. Congratulations, Mason. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Moore, Oklahoma, Gulfport, Mississippi, Fayetteville, Georgia, and right now the winner is Osan, South Korea.
And Apex, North Carolina.
Saving the absolute best for last. Absolutely.
Can't forget that one.
Cannot. Question here on Facebook. Matt Long would like to know, most improved position group for you since you got here as head coach to today.
Ooh, okay. So I think maybe two different answers to that one. I think if you say overall improvement, counting additions, I think DB. I think, you know, where we've come in the secondary from where we were, I think we've made tremendous strides. A lot of that obviously was some of the work we did in the transfer portal and additions, and then obviously a lot of the guys returning playing a big role too. I think if you say individual development of players who were here when I got hired, I would probably say the offensive line. I think where the offensive line has gone from a development standpoint and the level those same kids are playing at a year later, I think those kids have made a lot of strides.
Steve would like to know, with 6 games played, who's the most improved player on offense and defense?
Ooh. This is from the season or from last year?
This year.
Frame it. This year. From start to finish this year, most improved. Yeah, it's hard to say this. Like, it's hard to because of the accolades. But I'm going to say Le'Veon Moss on offense. Like, he's our MVP. He's doing more than anybody else. But I still think the improvement from where he was when this whole thing started through summer through game one, still feeling his way through how we want to run to where he is now, like where he's one of the more dominant backs in the country, I would say him. And then I think defensively, Dalton Brooks.
Ooh.
I think Dalton Brooks.
How good was he against Missouri?
Yeah, he's starting to become, the more so a lot of people don't know this. This is the first time in his life he's played safety.
He didn't play at Shiner?
No.
Really?
Yeah, so he was a quarterback athlete at Shiner.
Oh.
And he played a little bit of like linebacker, second level. He obviously played nickel in the old system here when he got here. And so when we got here, and it's funny, that him and Bryce I thought were the same. They fit our system at safety. I think they fit Coach Durkin's system at nickel, and that's not right or wrong. Right. That's just the difference in the systems. And so we recruited them both. I was here during the approval process, and so in my mind, I knew exactly how those two kids could fit. And so we moved them to safety, and I don't think I even had realized, because I think Dalton was a sophomore in high school when I went to Duke, or a junior in high school when I went to Duke.
Yes.
So I just kind of assumed at some point he had flipped over to safety at some point.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about it over the summer. And Coach Aristide was like, he's never played safety before, right? I'm like, wow, okay, he's pretty good. And he's only getting better every time he goes out there.
I mean, he seemed to be in every play against Missouri.
He's extremely athletic. He can run. He could hit. He did a really good job blitzing. He's a really good football player.
Yeah, I'm such a big fan of especially young fellows, not just freshmen, but the freshmen who become sophomores, the red shirts who get the playing time. I love seeing them take advantage. And in my mind, Mike, it's almost like, man, the picture becomes clearer. Like they had an idea of what it was like, then go through it. And then it's almost like they liked a little bit of success, and they just keep working even more. And you're seeing that now on the field with a number of players, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure. And it all goes back to that same process-driven thought process. But, kids show up here out of high school, and they're all supremely talented, right? And you don't get an opportunity to come play football at Texas A&M if you're not really talented. And I joke with a lot of them when they come in. It's like they have this vision that they're going to step out on the practice field day one and be the best player on the field. And somewhere about 8 minutes into the first practice, they realized that was a little bit of a lofty goal. And then you watch them kind of come back to earth, reset themselves, start to go to work, improve, realize what it takes to improve, realize what college football in the SEC is really all about, and then you really start to see them hit their stride and go. And it's funny, people always talk about these words like developmental. Oh, we don't have to, well, yeah, we're not a developmental program. We're getting some really high-level players when they come in, but it's still our job if we have a kid for 3 years, we better be good enough to develop him.
Right.
Like we should be able to figure out a way to make him better from year 1 to 2 to 3, especially when he was 18 years old. And so I do like to see kids develop and get better in our program.
In the second half hour of the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko, presented by Capital Farm Credit, we'll revisit a little bit of Missouri and look ahead to this weekend's opponent, Mississippi State. That's when we return to Rudy's. This is Aggie Football from Learfield. When you need a new roof or just have a pesky leak, you want to call on the winning team at Schulte Roofing, home of the Bulletproof Roof Guarantee. Get the best. Visit SchulteRoofing.com. It is the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko, and it's presented by Capital Farm Credit. We're getting you set. Aggies and Mississippi State, and that will be on Saturday from Starkville. 3:15 is the kick. I believe foot the ball 3:20. And our St. Joseph Health pregame show will come your way at 2 o'clock, getting you set for the Aggies and the Bulldogs. And we'll get to that in just a little bit, but we still have another question to ask and a chance to revisit the win over Missouri. Lance, class of 92, coach, in your coaching career, where does the Missouri game rank from the perspective of successful execution?
Oh, gosh. I don't even know that I judge it like that. Like, you get into this profession, and it's literally like next task, right? And so, it's not, and I don't mean that to be, but like you play the game, you win the game. Obviously, the score is what the score is, but as the coach, you're still focused on those 5 or 6 plays that we screwed up. It's still the only thing that you're worried about. How do we get those out of our system so we don't ever have them again? What's the next task? What's the next challenge? How do we keep the mindset where it needs to be? You just get into that rhythm and live there. And so I don't even know that I could compare them. It was a good day. It It was a good day for us. It was a good day going into the bye week. Always good to win at 11 a.m. That's important too. And so it was good.
It almost felt like 2 buys. I joked with everyone. It's always fun to sit back, not have a game, and watch the carnage throughout college football. Not be affected.
there's 2 games you always want to win. So if you play at 11 a.m., you want to win because you're wearing that one all day. Like you have to just sit and deal with that all day. And so if you win, you get one good Saturday where you can just kind of be like, okay, we're good and no one else is, right? I just can focus on everyone else's misery. And then you want to win going into the bye week,
right?
Because you're going to live with that one for a long time. And so when you have an 11 a.m. going into the bye week, it almost feels like a double dip when you figure out how to pull that one off.
In that victory, Offensive Lineman of the Week, Trey Zune. Once again, a healthy Trey Zune means so much to that offensive line, doesn't he?
He does. And I think that's where, like, people get lost on, like, the offseason and how much that matters. Like, Trey's been so banged up through all of his off seasons here that he's never really been able to like fully prepare the way he wanted to. And so I think being healthy from the time I got here all the way through today, we'll knock on wood on that one too, but I just think got him into a position where he's able to play as well as he's capable of, and I think he's really enjoying that.
Offensive player was Connor Wigman, and you said I've got to shout out Le'Veon Moss, but Connor was fantastic, wasn't he?
Yeah, 18 of 22, and I think he completed 82% of his passes, and so you can't ask for much more from that from your quarterback. And again, like, it's I don't want to use the word unfortunate because it's fortunate that we're getting these positions, but I think the Florida game, this game, we put the brakes on so early. I think we had over 500 yards of offense, and he threw for just under 300, and I think we put the brakes on the game midway through the third quarter, and so I think we're operating at a really efficient pace sometimes.
It's fun to see. You mentioned that he's good at throwing into open windows. You saw those windows, and you also saw the wideouts being there. It was good to see them in concert. Very much you could see the work that they have done together in the offseason, a rapport, if you will, with one another.
Yeah, you talk about margins in football and then margins in successful pass plays. You're not you want to live in a world where everyone's wide open. That's not the college football. That's not the SEC world. And so, you go back and you think about the third down at Jabri Barber, and the window to make that throw and catch and the timing and where Jabri has to be at the right moment. Because not only does the ball have to be delivered and caught and the route need to be run, but you also got to factor in those 6'5", 300-pounders that, so it's got to be in the right rhythm, timing, window. All of it has to sync together. And that takes a lot of work, and those kids have put in a lot of time together to get that where it needs to be.
Your special teamer was Rylan Kennedy. Man, 15 is something. He's one of those youngsters coming on.
Yeah, he is, and every single time we put the film on, it's like, okay, we got to find more ways to have this kid impact the game, and he's playing in different defensive packages. He's helping us on first and second down a little bit more now. He's on all the special teams. He just impacts the game every time he goes out there. You go back to the effort thing. Mm-hmm. He's the first. He's I don't want to undersell him, but I'm gonna round this off at about 6'4.5", 240. And he was the first guy down on kickoff twice, right? And so, like, that's moving, like really moving. And so, yeah, he's doing a really good job for us.
Your defensive players, Albert Regis, Rodas Gatachu Johnson.
Yeah.
Those interior guys, man.
So, first, Al Regis, and he's probably, he's the most unsung player that we have who I think is playing at a really, really high level, and Albert's another kid, he was a fullback, kind of a D-line and fullback coming out, and I remember Elijah Robinson bringing him to me back in the day, and just like, he's like, man, I just really like this kid. He's not a high-profile kid, but I really like him. I like what he's made. I like how he talks. I think he can be a really good football player for us, and then we got to know him, and we were like, yeah, I agree. And so we brought him in, and to kind of see him 2 years after I left and what he's grown into, and he's been a force for us on the defensive line. And then Rodas Johnson, he's another one, and we try to point out all these culture moments as much as we can, and you've been around and you've heard it a lot, but this kid started 24 games at Wisconsin. He's a multi-year starter on the defensive line, and he comes here and because he wants to compete and be part of this team and this defense in this league, and he competes but comes up a little short of becoming the starter. And, a lot of times that's the end. right? Like for a lot of kids nowadays, it's like, yeah, I didn't win the starting job, so I'm not doing this. And he doesn't. And he goes out and he plays a lot, and he's playing 35, 40 plays, and they're meaningful snaps for us, and he's been really productive. He got a sack against Missouri, and those things are some of the things behind the scenes that I think help things go in the direction you want them to go.
With Albert, how do you measure this?
It's that conversation everybody has, and it's probably a good platform to talk through this. I'm going to talk through this about as many times as you'll let me. Like, everyone has this conversation about, like, do you want 5 stars or do you want blue-collar guys? Like, I want guys who are going to be NFL players. That's what I want. And they come in all different shapes and sizes. They're not all 5 stars. They're not all 3 stars. They're not all blue-collar. They're not all, like, they come, but in each kid, what you want to see is something that paves his path to becoming an NFL player, right? Because ultimately that's what you have to fill your roster with if you want to be competitive in the SEC. And so you look at a kid like Albert Regis, and like, you see the intangibles, you see the work ethic, you see how passionate he is about the game, and you see the athleticism, and you go, okay, I can project this thing to get to a point where he's going to be a really productive NFL football player. And that's what he's doing, and that's what he's done. And you're not always right, but that's what you want to see. Or sometimes it's DeMarvin Leal. Yeah. And this is one of the freakiest athletes I've ever seen, but he's wired the right way, and I don't think he's going to come in and be the wrong way. And Bobby Brown was the same way. And so they come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, but you've got to say, like, this is how I envision this kid becoming a draftable NFL player. And Albert's path maybe wasn't elite as a sophomore in high school, but it was some other things that you saw in him that were like, yeah, this kid's going to get there.
More of the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko. It's presented by Capital Farm Credit. Stay with us. This is Aggie Football from Learfield. Come visit Costa Vida in South College Station for Baja-style Mexican, made from scratch daily. Serving breakfast tacos, lunch, and dinner. Aggie owned and operated by Holly Johnston and proud partner of Texas A&M Athletics. The Aggies in Mississippi State on Saturday, 3:15 from Starkville. You mentioned on Monday during media availability, did you have to go up against Dak Prescott when you were at Bowling Green?
Yeah, I did. It was, I want to say it was like the transition. So the year, like, it was 2013, we went down there at Bowling Green and played him. Dan Mullen was the head coach, and it was 2014 that Mississippi State really took off. I think that was the year they played the Egg Bowl 1 and 2 in the country. And like somewhere in the middle of that is when Dak Prescott, 2013, he started to emerge. And I think we had like the first start, like the first game he started, like he was just coming into his own. So it wasn't the full version of him yet. But yeah, that was, and we actually almost beat him that night. It was a great game. But got a little Dak in Starkville. First time there.
This is why you always say that's such a tough place. Like I get the stadiums, right? But it's the talent, right? It's Nick Fitzgerald that you have to try to stop.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And that's like, and they've always been like, because you get into all these like ratings worlds and the camps and all that stuff, and the talent in the state of Mississippi is immense, and not a lot of it is nationally known. Right? A lot of it is just, people that recruit Mississippi know the high schools and know the coaches and know the areas and know where the talented players are. And so you'd always walk in there, and I remember when I was here as a defensive coordinator, I think they had 4 first-round draft picks on defense the one year.
When Sweat was on that. Yeah, and all the other ones got drafted too.
They're all Mississippi State. They're all Mississippi kids, and we didn't even know. You don't hear their names because they don't really come up in the recruiting circles because they're Mississippi kids and they're locked into staying in Mississippi. And then all of a sudden you show up and it's like, who are these guys? They're huge and they're talented and they're awesome. And that's I think what you get a lot of times when you go into Starkville. And
it always seems like they've got tall secondary players. They're all tall on that back end.
Tall and long and athletic. And, it's
funny. We all look at the air raid, right? Because Mike Leach was there, and you would discount at your own peril. But you look at that defense; it was always you had to slug your way.
Yeah. And at their best, like when they were at their best and competing at their best levels in this league, they were loaded with talented defense. Chris Jones was on that team with Dak Prescott, and they were just been loaded with defensive players.
We'll talk about our final segment. Jeff Lemby's got that team now. We'll talk a little bit about him and what the Aggies will face against the Bulldogs on Saturday. We return to the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko. It's presented by Capital Farm Credit. Our last segment next is Aggie Football from Learfield. Rudy's is a proud sponsor of Aggie Football. Be sure to stop by your local Rudy's or visit rudys.com for some real Texas barbecue. Enjoy 100% oak smoke meats, delicious sides, and Rudy's signature sauce. Our final segment, Aggies, Mississippi State, Saturday, 3:15 in Starkville. Jeff Lebby now has that team. You mentioned that, one, they've got big play capability, and Jeff Lebby, this team I know they're 1-5, and the worst thing I could say to you is, well, they're only 1-5, Mike, right? You see this team coming together, getting some players back, another team with a lot of really talented wideouts, tight ends, they can rotate, running backs. That's just the offensive end, and a young quarterback is coming into his own, isn't he?
Yeah, for sure. And when you put on a team, what you don't want to see is a team that's getting better every week, and you don't want to see a team that plays hard, and they do both, right? And so that's the first indicator that you're going to have your hands full. And so I think they're getting better every single week. I don't know that they're getting the results necessarily that they want. They play 2 really tough road trips in a row, and certainly that'll throw a monkey wrench in the validation piece of it.
Right.
But they're still going out there. They're competing every week, and they're really talented. They are. They got 3 elite receivers, and they certainly lit up Georgia in the second half. And so that'll catch your attention real quick.
You also said this, talented versus talent rich.
Yeah.
Right? 2 different things, aren't they?
There's no doubt. And this is a talented group, and it's an SEC football team. And so we certainly have not been very good in Starkville. And so we got to go figure out a way to get it done this week.
Change that, beat the hell out of the Bulldogs, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for coming out, and looking forward to this weekend. Thanks to Gig'em.
He is head coach Mike Elko, the Aggies and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. 3:15 this Saturday, 2 o'clock. Our St. Joseph Health pregame show will start. You will hear from Connor Wigman. Will Johnson's going to go one-on-one with Torian York, and we'll get Coach Mike Elko just before that opening kick and get you set for the Aggies and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Again, 2 o'clock, our St. Joseph Health pregame, 3:15 is when we will kick things off between the Aggies, who are ranked number 14 going into that game, and Mississippi State coming in at 1-5 and looking for their first SEC win. Kevin Menchow is our engineer here at Rudy's. Tony O'Neill is the producer of the Aggie Football Hour with Mike Elko, presented by Capital Farm Credit. That's in our Learfield studios. I'm Andrew Monaco. We thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, and Gig'em.